Okay. Okay, it is Saturday or Sunday, depending on the continent you're on, 10:22 or 10:23. And we're having our Bucky call, and it looks like we're getting close to finishing up our first pass through Bucky's design discipline, Oblivion or Utopia. And we get to, we're going to resolve that today. If we finish, we'll have it resolved and we're going to have it all worked out. So Manu, how are you feeling? And what do you expect to get out of today?
I feel good. I feel grateful. I feel like living. And I really feel like sending out love to all you guys. And I expect that we progress. I expect a lot of love and respect. And I expect that while we land somewhere here and reconsider what we've done during the past few weeks, and we charter a new direction of our discussion. That's the way I feel. Anne, how do you feel? What do you expect?
Okay, I feel actually I'm looking forward to today's call. Yeah, let me get back to being able to see you. Yes, and actually I want to explore further this whole idea of this one town world. You know what actually he means by that, because I like the sound of that. And then to also explore further this whole idea of world and universe citizenship. We got that going the last week, and I know it's come up a number of times. And I've met a lot of people who are calling themselves world citizens, and so yeah, I'd like to explore it further based on what Bucky is talking about. Yeah. So Joe, how do you feel, and what do you expect to take away today?
I feel good. Love accepted from you, Manu. Much needed. I feel okay. Dealing with some things at home, that's for sure, and just trying to manage, manage life. But I'm excited to be on this call. I just had some kind of epiphanies to this today in realizing how Bucky has helped me in identifying generalized principles. And specifically, I was just thinking of an economic model, and I started drawing, and things started to click, and that was like, wow, that felt pretty good. But it was, a lot of it was just based off of what we do here with the Bucky call. We don't always see the fruits of our labors right away when we're going through this. We're reading it, and it's easy to think, what the hell is he talking about? And so but it's there, and there's a lot of thought there, and there's a lot of connections that you can make. So I'm looking forward to getting I guess getting close to finishing this, and keep on exploring Bucky's ideas. It's going to be fun. Steve, sorry, I forgot all about you there. How do you feel?
Yeah. Well, I feel.
What do you want to take away from today?
Well, I was listening to again to Roger Penrose in a discussion with Jordan Peterson. They have about a 2-hour conversation on consciousness, and right at the end, Penrose was talking about Maxwell's equation, and he said Maxwell's equations, it makes no difference how big or how small the universe is, they work. And I thought, I understand that. That's topology, dude. The size of a thing is not important to the nature of a thing, how big it is, how small it is. And so I thought, my goodness, I understand topology. Why didn't he say the word topology? But he explained it in layman's terms. And I'm just really grateful to I think that's one of the gifts that Manu has given me over the years, is this ability to think absolutely, totally abstract, totally almost non-conceptual. I try to conceptualize when Bucky says stuff, but he's describing things that are not necessarily conceptual. The nature of the universe is not necessarily conceivable. It is, but the human brain has trouble wrapping itself around it. So by understanding that anything that I conceive, any concept that I get is a metaphor of what is. It's not a reality. And I couldn't even say that anywhere else. Nobody would know what I'm talking about. You guys, I'm not sure if I communicated with you, but I'm glad you're here. And before we start, Anne, I'm real, because last week you had a science fair going on, or a week before, and we heard that one of your students had been acknowledged, and you were then had to run off to go get something. And I'm just now remembering that. What happened at your school? Your students, what did they win some awards? What went on with that?
Yes, actually, I thought I would have time to have a meeting with your, that was 2 weeks ago. So what's been happening is in Malaysia, they've never seen a school that where the students are encouraged to run businesses, and we've been doing that for 10 years. That means kids even from primary school, how they like to play buying and selling at home. We just make it real, but we want to make it not adult-like and still very playful, kid-like, because otherwise, we will turn them off doing business forever. So that was it. And so what happened was that we were invited by the state, the government arm of the state on finance, and it's called Invest Selangor. Selangor is a state that we are we live in, and we also run our businesses. All my schools are in that state. So they invited, they had this huge exhibition and summit, a business summit. They took on this whole convention center that right smack in the middle of KL, and it's the KL Petronas Twin Towers, the iconic building that we have in Malaysia. So we were there, and so we were the only school there. They've never ever invited a school, gave us a really lovely location. I think you saw that, yeah. And we were not bound with all the other stalls nearby, and they were very clear that the minute the crown prince of the state, who is the patron, comes by, they're going to bring them over to our booth. So, but before he arrived, I knew I had time, but the thing was, parents, other people started coming to the children, right? And we were short of a couple of teachers around to kind of help with the kids. So the kids were happily talking, but the problem, not the problem, this time around, this guy, he manufactures machinery for food production. So he saw this boy's invention, and he won. He's got a scholarship in our school because he won our Young Entrepreneur X Factor competition. Yeah, but what happened was, through the school, we also signed ourselves up for this innovation association or a group. Yeah, and what happened was, we sent him for the competition, and his Coco Cool, that's what it's called. It is a little contraption that allows people to extract coconut water without it being exposed to flies and and so on at the top. And so you just push it onto this spike, and then the water drains into a bucket, the insulated bucket, and he's got eyes all around it. Immediately it goes through. There's a tap at the end. You turn it, within seconds you get cold coconut water. So this guy was asking, can I collaborate with you? That's why I had to step in, and he had his booth nearby, so we had to run over to have a look at the booth. And then he introduced our student to this guy from the government, where they approved all inventions and devices, and they look at the safety standards of that organization, right? So he came over, and that was why my whole the timing went off. I had to run off. Yeah, but that was what happened. It was really cool. And then later on that day, the crown prince actually came, and the kids were the highlight, right? So when he came, the news reporters, the cameras were all just going off. It was madness. I couldn't believe it. And he said, I didn't try any of the food for safety reasons, any of the food in this 5 halls, yeah, but I will try your food. He spoke to the kids, and he tried. And then we moved him over. The kids all spoke to him, and then we moved him over to this boy's Coco Cool, and to have a look at it, right? So he asked, okay, show me, how does this work? And that boy is 12 years old, right? He said,
Wow.
okay, he picked up the coconut, passes it to the crown prince, and said, why don't you try it? He got him to put it on the spike. I was like, oh, that was inspired. And he did it, and the whole thing went so smoothly, and immediately coconut water came out, and he tried it and so on. So it was such a highlight for the children, and that's what happened.
That's
Wow.
amazing. That's
Let me just ask you. I'm just having the component of coconut in cross section.
Yes.
Okay, there is a husk, there's a shell, there's water, and there is
Yes.
endosperm of copra. What happened to all of
Mhm.
this? So you say
Oh.
that it's taking out the water, right?
Mm.
What happened
But
to the shell?
Okay,
Because the shell
generally,
can be used for many, many things.
yes, it can. Actually, the whole
Usually when
coconut-
you crack a coconut thing, you crack
That's
the
why I
shell.
love you, Manu. I got to be
Okay.
honest. That's why it's such a great thing. You're thinking, Bucky, what's left over? How do I
Yes.
use what's left over? The pollution.
Actually, the whole coconut is used in Malaysia.
That's
the whole
awesome.
tree actually can be used, So nothing is wasted, and I don't know exactly what each of them are used for, but definitely the coconut, the shell is used for all sorts of things, and sometimes people use it to put candles, to light, for light. I know they've made lamps out of it. And then the husk, of course, people use it for fuel and so on. I got to find out. That was what we learned when we were in school. We know they're all still using it, and the whole tree is very, very useful to especially the village folks. But then they're also used in other ways now. I got to find out what else they're using it for.
Okay.
But could he preserve the form of a shell? What I'm trying to say is that, okay, you have the white of a coconut, right? Was he able to scrub it from the shell after
you mean the
covering the
flesh?
water?
Yeah.
That's the thing he has to crack now. Okay.
Oh, I
But,
thought he had that. Okay. All right. I'm sorry.
No, he's able to extract it. Now the hygiene side is so we may need another contraption to crack it open to be able to take out and in a hygienic manner. But the thing was, I was away in another state because our students went on a golf tour, and I brought students along. We were having we were running master classes, and I had students to come along to do interviewing of the Malaysian players, the junior players, right? So I was sharing and I brought this boy along to do the interviewing. So I introduced him to the organizer. So one of the organizers, he's an entrepreneur, right? He's the one who conceived of this golf tour that's never been done in Malaysia at the level that we're doing it at. It's like more like what you see in the USGA, yeah. But anyway, so he asked the boy, he said, what you're doing there, can it be used for any other drinks? The contraption. The minute he said that, oh my God, it opened up. You can literally do any juice or pour anything, even wine, out from a box, and it will be cooled immediately, things like that. So juices, you just pour it through, and so you don't even need the coconut. It can be used across so many. So I came back because I brought him back to KL, spoke to the mom, and he's got to get this patented quick.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm saying that because exists in places. You know, the coconut has a nose. It has
Yes.
two, on top of it, it has two black stuff, which
Yes.
are soft, which you can scrub out to reach the inside.
Yes.
Normally, you know, people use that on the coastal areas in Africa here all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, they will get the water from the nut, from the coconut.
Mm.
Now, the big thing is, if you could, when you remove the husk, because the first thing that you get of a coconut is to remove the husk,
Mhm.
to peel it off. It's like hair, it's like black hair. It's kinky, it's all mixed. You pull it off, and then when you clean that
The husk.
the
The flesh,
The
inner
fibers.
shell, the inner shell,
Mm.
the hard one.
the inner,
Black one.
the inner shell. Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
normally that one has on top of it two holes, two
Yes.
soft
Yes.
stuff.
Correct.
That actually that suck the water from where it is in there,
You are a
from the-
trader or
from the husk inside, right?
Mm.
That's the way coconut conserve, take water from outside.
Yes.
in. So when you scrub that, it opens the inside for the water to come out, or mud,
Correct.
coconut mud to
Yeah.
come out. Now, when you have it now, you've got to have, you see the coconut flesh, the endosperm.
Yes. Correct.
That's the most important thing in terms of being comestible, apart from the water. So you have to scrub it out without damaging the shell, the inner shell, right? So I will be very interested for your guy to see a way of having something that you introduce into those two holes and scrubbing that out to recover. And that can be used for so many things.
Yeah. Okay. The thing about the coconut is this, because the one that we are using is actually the young coconut, and we don't even remove the husk. That's the beauty of its contraption. Without even removing the husk, you can actually extract the water. So there isn't that much of the meat there, the flesh, the white flesh. But you're right. So that's the other thing that he has to crack. How do we actually, even if it's very fine, soft flesh, we like it. We like it, right? So it has to come out. So one thing at a time. So we cracked one. Now we got to figure another one, and then the rest of the coconut. Right now, across the world, we still have to crack open the shell of the coconut in order to extract the flesh. No one has actually figured out how to do it without cracking it open, because they are hard. And you can't do a small hole to just pull them up. It's
How do they do? How do they do? I've seen some art objects where the shell almost complete, just with little hole on top, is used. Maybe they rotten the stuff inside, and because another way to do it is to send in some chemical that is going to dissolve the flesh, the white flesh. And when you dissolve it, then you just shake it and pour it out. That's another way. But you have sacrificed, the good food.
Yeah. Yep. But sometimes the coconut drops off, and there are coconuts that are not very edible either, So you do have that as well. So maybe they chose those that,
Maybe.
like all fruits, not everyone comes out okay. Yeah.
Very interesting.
And if you come up with more on
Thank you
it,
for that.
Dan, keep us posted. And
Yeah, please
it's so
do.
exciting. I think
It is
and-
exciting.
Yeah. And here you are living the Bucky concept. You've been doing it for 10 years. You're kind of like the prophetess of the future age. And if with your guys' permission, we'll drop into our reading. John Butler said he was going to be here tonight, and he isn't here. So maybe he'll show up late. So far, nobody else is trying to get into the meeting. So we left off at the bottom of this paragraph, but I think I would like to read this first paragraph here before we
Okay.
continue. In California, because I want to stop after the first sentence, because I think in some ways Bucky was ahead of his time and right on. Sometimes he was ahead of his time and far off. And this first sentence just blows me away. So, and
I'll give it a read.
well, if you would, Joe, you're kind of our
Sure.
surrogate John Butler, right? You're the surrogate John Butler. And so
I
So-
think John Butler would be very upset about that. He'd be like, "Oh my god." Anyway,
So-
for only the last 12 years, all of history has it been scientifically acknowledged that all humanity may now be physically and economically successful.
okay, let's stop right there. He wrote this in 59 or something. This was published in 60. I think he had 66 in the date up above, 65 or 66. And he's saying something here that kind of blew me away when I look back at it again. For only the last 12 years. So if this was written in 65, he would have been talking about 55, 53 to 65. For only the last 12 years of all history has it been scientifically acknowledged that all humanity may now be physically and economically successful. How did he?
Well,
Who
even
said that?
yeah, and even how's he defining scientifically acknowledged? Is he talking about it in terms of economics?
I don't know. And that's the reason why I'm asking us to pause here, because most of the science back in the 60s was all about overpopulation and
Yeah, exactly. So was it the Malthusian, like essentially, I think he does talk about that below, that it had been upended, that line of thought of overpopulation, that we can't feed people, that, finite resources.
well, maybe we should go ahead and read it. It just
So
blew me
yeah,
away.
But think of ephemeralization, right?
that's right. It's exactly what it is.
Okay, there is ephemeralization. You think Becky started thinking of these things in pre-war and between the two wars, and the Great War. This is where all the experiment, because of the imperative of war, are put into play to yield results, and the results are overwhelming. So you can see, remember that at the offing of the Second World War, you have the transistor. Chocolate,
Sure.
right?
No.
Big discovery, application.
Huge.
You have all the radio, aerodynamics, flights, big flights. You have all the things that were developed during the war for food production.
That's right.
So you have ephemeralization at play, and you have, most importantly, critical mass of knowledge and application of those to yield results that are huge in regard to the means used, right? So that's what I think he's talking about, in that for the first time, it is scientifically demonstrated that there is enough food, there is enough way of building shelters, there is no way of doing this that satisfy the needs of humanity without really completely burning down everything else.
Yeah.
Without, yes.
This is very, very important on a number of levels. I just attended actually a meetup last week on a new university that's being launched called Trivium University. And it talks about the idea that that we have to make things work here on our planet. And essentially, they discuss the fact that humanity that humanity can survive with 8 billion people or even 9 billion people. It's not necessarily something where it's going to result in us having everybody like a lack of resources. And this is what Bucky's getting at. But there's a really important thing to think about here, and maybe as we go on and read about it, you know, yes, we were producing more food, we were producing more calories, we were producing, you know, economically we were growing, but we stagnated at a certain point too. And that's an important thing to think about. We stagnated in the 70s and the 80s, early 80s. There was a lot of stagnation in the sense that you know, we had rising prices, rising unemployment. Everybody wants, you know, stagflation per se. What there were signals were is that a lot of what we were doing in those times were maybe not sustainable. Maybe these systems that we were coming up with weren't regenerative. And I think we need to think about those types of things as opposed to, you know, just kind of thinking the way things, you know, the way, I don't know, the military industrial complex thinks. That's the best way I could put it. In the sense that we really have to start thinking about design and how we design a system and planet that where we don't exploit the resources. We can produce them, but we can't exploit our resources for the long term. That's all I'm saying.
But Joe, look at it this way. If we want, if I take what you just said,
Sure.
I'm staying in one phase, and that doesn't sit completely with Becky's fault. Becky always talk about the duality as a primary unity. Unity is plural at minimum of two. That is this, is that in spite of all the progress, if we don't think about the other side of a cycle, that is, how do you effectively distribute? How does exchange?
Right.
How does exchange balance? It's not going to work.
That's right.
Remember the famous, the individual is in final examination. So if you look at, if you take a snapshot of today, what is happening in the world? What is the picture of the world? The picture of the world is that of extreme imbalances.
Sure.
Okay, so if we don't correct those imbalances, nature will do it, isn't it? Usually in a very violent way.
I agree with that. Yeah.
That I think that is, to me, the point. The point is this one: we've seen, you know, a few with all today, and the masses. I'm not talking about the developed and developing countries. No, I'm talking about within the rich countries. The richest of which is the US.
The mere perception of it, yeah, is a problem.
Yes. Is American social fabric, is that fabric happy and healthy today?
No, we're one of the most unhappy countries.
Yeah,
I mean,
that is where the problem is.
It is a problem, and it's a big problem, just for the very least, the perception that things are unfair. That the system is not working for everyone. And if you have that as a perception, even if, and it is a truth actually to a certain degree,
yeah,
that the system
not
is
the importance
people
of all in that sentence.
That's right.
I really like, Manu, that you brought up that he's writing after World War II. The war ends in like 46, 47. So by 1955, 56, the reconstruction of Japan and the reconstruction of Europe started, and industry was doing great. There was Reynolds Wrap on TV, and it really did look like a time of prosperity in the world, I think. And perhaps Bucky was capturing this.
Oh, it was. I mean, there was the GI Bill. There's all these
Yeah.
other things that people were able to do. There were people able to purchase homes.
Yeah,
Homes were becoming cheaper. There were Levitt towns all throughout the United States.
yeah,
You know, now we can argue whether all those things ended up being a good thing, but that's where I'm trying to think about this in the past, not 12 years. I'm thinking in the past 50 years, we have to evaluate this now.
yeah.
Mhm.
And I
Well,
think
that's
that's an important distinction here. Those 12 years that Bucky's talking about were absolutely considered I think they were referred to as the 40 or 30 glorious years at one point.
yeah.
You know, that there was this economic growth and that everything was going well for people and there was a strong middle class and all these other things like that. It wasn't going well for the whole world. Let's be clear about
Yeah,
that
and
too.
that's kind of interesting. Maybe let's continue reading. And Anne, do you have any comments on what we've been talking about? I mean,
Actually,
what was going on for you back in 1965, 1970, you know?
70, I was
not
in
that
prime. Oh, but I am.
Oh,
Still a kid though. So yeah, we saw the the man landing on the moon, right? But not live. Back then, no live. It was black and white TV. But I was a kid then, so don't really know a lot of what went on in the world back then. Malaysia is about easily back then was about 20 years behind time, behind where the US was. Now we're about 10 years behind, like say the West, But I'm looking. I'm actually searching through online here because this book was written in 1965, right?
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to do his other books where it was written in 1981, The Critical Path. And I think, Critical Path is one that was written in 1981.
Yeah, this book
does
here
it say 66 or 56?
says 66.
Okay.
So today, 1966, do humanities myriad of specialized experts. Anyway, go ahead, Anna.
Yeah, so more to see what his thoughts were back then after about 20 years of writing the books in the 1960s. That'll be pretty interesting. I'm just saying,
Yeah. Well, how old were you back in 1970?
I was.
If I may ask, my dear.
No problem.
You certainly
no
don't
problem.
have to tell me. Okay, good.
I'm not fast. I was born in 62. So 70, I would have been 8.
About 8. So did you think the world was a great place to be? Did you see potential for you? Did you ever see yourself being the head of the school that was going to be a leader in entrepreneurism? And really, you're ahead of your time in America. We haven't figured out what you're doing yet. Did you ever? Yeah.
But
Were you positive about your future? Did you have hope? Did you think you could become queen?
Nope.
Okay.
Life was really hard.
But let's put this like this. The local manifestation of that in that Southeast Asia, principally Malaysia. You see, and when you're born, that's when Singapore is moving away from Malaysia with a different model.
63.
Okay. Now, fast forward 30 years, 40 years. What is the situation like? Or 50 years?
Okay, we are a country that have all the resources in the world without the disasters, the threats of disasters. And yet we fell so short behind Singapore. Okay. And all that boils down to the leadership of the country.
Okay, that's exactly it. I was going to compare that because if you didn't know Joe and Steve, Malaysia and Singapore were one country. And in Malaysia, there is a Chinese minority of about 20% of the population.
Yep.
And 80% are Malay or
Yes.
70%, and the remainder are Indians and all
Yep.
this Indonesians. And in 1962, right? So in 1962 or 63, Singapore, because of some choices, actually move out. Lee Kuan Yew, they move out and they founded this city-state on rocks because there is no resource in Singapore. There's no resource. There's no natural resource. So as compared, and I think Malaysia gave Singapore, they thought that Singapore would be back begging into the Malaysian Federation less than 10 years later. They really thought so. Right? But history and deployment of intellectual power, the mind, has proven differently. If you look by the per capita income of Malaysia, of Singapore, is at least twice that of Malaysia.
Mm-hmm.
I think Singapore is like $50,000 or $60,000 a year per capita, whereas Malaysia should be about 30,000. I don't know, but this is just
less. It's less
comparison. Second things in terms of happiness of a population, education of population, industrialness of a population per capita. I mean, you know, the number of patent and whatever, you know, per capita. There's no comparison, as there's no comparison in size. So it just goes to show that the choices that you make and how you manage, and you are kind of loyal to those choices in the future, can be channeled to produce results that you could expect teleologically.
Yep.
That's one example. Yes. The other example was that was Taiwan or South Korea. It is choices.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that in the case of South Korea, it wasn't a democratic government. It was a junta, military junta, that from 1958 to 1990 ruled Korea. It wasn't any democracy, but it led Korea to where it is.
Right.
Manu, can you pull out the map again? The one with Malaysia.
That was me.
I'll be glad
to put it up Steve. There. Okay, sorry. Thank you, Steve.
I just heard you guys talking. I thought, you know, I'm a white guy from California, and I don't even know where. I know Singapore is down there somewhere, and I didn't know where it was relative to Malaysia. So I was really delightful that Manu gave me a tour.
Yes, he knows a lot about Malaysia. So now
I've been to Malaysia. So
cool. Let me know when you come by again. So Malaysia has got two parts to it: the east of Malaysia and the west of Malaysia, right? The word Malaysia is actually in the peninsula, which is West Malaysia. On the east side, you see the word Brunei, the little country Brunei.
Yeah.
And then it's surrounded by two states, Sarawak and Sabah. Yeah, Sarawak and Sabah belongs to Malaysia. That is East Malaysia. So you can see how big our country is, you know, in comparison to Singapore. Singapore is just a little dot, a little bleep at the bottom of the peninsula of Malaysia. And you just imagine our resources. We've got jungles. We're surrounded by sea and shipping lanes. And, you know, this is what it takes to go from China to India and to Europe and back and forth. They have to pass through the Straits of Malacca, you know. So in terms of trade and air travel, everything, we are so strategic right there, you know.
Wow.
But our country really messed it up so badly that we are so far behind Singapore. Singapore has got trillions of dollars in their you know, as what do you call the backup, you know, their funds, right? And we literally have nothing left thanks to our previous prime minister who I think you're aware of the whole debacle, the one with the one MDB. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, he literally stole 42 billion ringgit from our country. Yeah. He's not the only one. All of them are stealing, you know. So it's just that he stole bigger, better, faster, and it was in a manner that was just too in your face. But
Right.
not that he's the only one who have taken that much. Some have taken even more.
Yeah.
That's what happened with our country.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, if everybody's complete, we'll go back to the reading.
Yes.
I'm just wondering about his, Bucky had so much hope back in 1966. And
I
I'm
have
looking
hope
at
for
this and
Malaysia
going,
at this point.
yeah, what happened? Okay, let's continue then. If you would, Joe.
Sure.
The
Humanity's
just the grunge of giant happened, Steve.
The what?
The grunge of giants. You know his book.
Oh, yeah.
He wrote it in 1980, I think. Just
Put that
before
in
he
the
died.
chat.
The grunge of giants. Let me just say it. You know the book?
No.
His book.
Mm.
Hang on, let me close the screen so we can see you up close.
Grunge of giant.
Mm.
Grunge of giants.
Becky. Read this, Joe, especially for you. Because it's talking about economics.
I will. Actually, yeah.
And there's his,
It's a very small book. It's,
and there's his cube octahedron right there on the cover.
yeah.
His jitterbug cube octahedron's right there.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I'm looking at the other books, you know, and he started writing in the 30s,
Yeah.
20s.
Kiyosaki quote a lot this book. A
Oh,
lot.
really?
Mm.
If you are in
Yeah.
with Kiyosaki, he's always talking about it. This.
Oh, this sounds interesting. No more
Interesting.
secondhand God.
It's called
That's another
Gross
title.
Universal Cash Haste. Grunge means, let me put it in the chat. Grunge.
And you were saying, Anne, that Bucky wrote a book called No More Secondhand God.
Yes, that's interesting.
Yeah.
It's another one on intuition for a scientist to write about intuition. That's interesting.
I got it.
Hmm.
Oh, it's available on Kindle.
Hmm. Synergetics. Yep, that one. Yeah, Critical Path is in the 80s. Grunge of Giants is in the 80s.
Yeah. Those are the last. Becky died in 1983.
Mm. Just before he died. And he's
Yes.
got one more. Humans in Universe. And last after he died, Cosmography. Yeah,
Yeah.
Cosmography.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, the grunge of behind, you know, if you read it, is really, really, he is why, like, not dejected, I would say, but he's warning about what will happen.
Mm.
The capture of results.
Interesting.
Mm.
Interesting. All right. Shall we get back
Okay.
to
Yeah, let's continue. Thank you for sharing. Whoops, sorry, I was looking for the intuition book. And I found something, but I want to find this. Here we go. We're going to continue to read.
we should maybe I don't think anybody would want to go through Grunch of Giants anyway.
I'd love to go through Gunch of Giants.
Mm.
Yeah, we could.
We've talked about doing this book again, but maybe it's time to proceed on and see what he's developed later on. I'm really interested in this concept of intuition. I'd like to read that book, you know.
All right.
Okay.
Maybe that's an idea. I think that's a really good idea, actually.
Yeah.
Now I'm just looking at it. Can you make this a little bigger, Steve?
Well, only for good guys.
Oh, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Well, then actually you should be making it smaller for me then. So it's
Okay.
like in that particular
There we go.
instance. Okay. There we go. Humanity's mastery of vast, inanimate, inexhaustible energy sources and the accelerated doing more with less of sea, air, and space technology have proven Malthus to be wrong. Comprehensive physical and economic success for humanity may now be accomplished in 1/4 of a century. For the first time in history, it is to be assumed now and henceforth that it is normal for man to be a physical and economical success, as normal as it is for a hydrogen atom to demonstrate the success of its designed inner patterning potentials. Now and henceforth, it is not only normal for man to be a physical and economic success, but to be so without endangering the success of any others and without interfering with the degrees of freedom of others. A design science revolution is underway.
Okay, I'd like to point out there that he's talking about as normal as it is for a hydrogen atom to demonstrate the success of its designed interpatterning potentials. In other words, human beings should be a success as demonstrably as an atom bomb was successful. But human beings should be able to be as successful as atom bombs, this little potential with this big output of energy, and we ought to be able to do it without endangering the success and interfering into the degrees of freedom of others. So he was using the atom bomb as a metaphor for the potential of human beings to see this kind of physical and economic success. Any other comments or thoughts on that?
Very interesting in that. If you read it again, what you read, Steve, it is the hydrogen atom to demonstrate the success of its design interpatterning
potentials. Exactly
You
right.
know, because you don't see the atom. Nobody has ever seen the atom. You don't
That's
see
right.
it. You see patterns.
Yeah.
You see potentials.
Yes.
You see a cloud
Right.
of hydrogen. I mean, nobody has ever held hydrogen like this. This is hydrogen. We just have a representation of hydrogen.
Yeah.
But we know it is there. It is a pattern.
Yeah.
So it is in a state. Remember that a pattern is repeated of an event in a certain way or event in certain way that is recurrent. In pattern, you have the notion of cycle, you have notion of recurrence, and you have a notion of conservation of the form.
Yeah. And of
Right?
reiteration, and of reiteration, and of fractalization.
Yes. So you
I
can
mean, it's
redesign our existence.
Yeah. It's
in
like
such a way that it is similarly demonstrable.
right. So
So you can say, let's just say that future generation, because we see hydrogen today that was created eons ago.
Right.
Let's just say future beings, they will come and say, hey, this is the signature of successful beings.
Yeah. He was using it as a metaphor.
Yes, because you did it in a way that it is now part of the evolution, not as perceived, eliminated by evolution, but it's a building brick. It is a step in the evolution that concatenate properly with other states.
And
to
he's
form
used
that procession.
Yeah.
You understand the word
sorry,
concatenating? That put itself really in there, and it is part of a fabric of universe.
Yeah.
In its evolution.
And he's using the hydrogen atom as a metaphor. As you point out, Manu, nobody's ever seen a hydrogen atom. We've seen pictures of what people conceptualize a hydrogen atom about, but a hydrogen atom, an actual hydrogen atom, may not be conceptual. We create these metaphors, and here he is using this metaphor of this interpatterning potential, and he's likening up to a human being, as if a human being is like a hydrogen atom. We have these designed interpatterning inner patterning potentials. Yeah. That's a perfect
What do you mean
topological.
that? What do you mean that an atom is not conceptual?
Well, in other words, I can create metaphors of what a hydrogen atom is, but I can't. You know,
Okay.
Our atom, our perception, our experience of the atom is conceptual.
yeah. And now they're
But the atom is what it is.
they're taking pictures of atoms. They're showing electrons, and you have this little fuzzy thing now where you see this energy fuzzing around things. But that's just one way to look at it. You know, remember
Right.
that an electron, if I look at an electron as though it were a particle, it demonstrates itself as a particle. If I look at an electron as though it's a wave, it demonstrates itself as a wave. So somehow, that's why we came up with the word wavicles. You know, somehow there are there are designed inner patterning potentials in the universe that are really non-conceptual. Like, what is a mountain? Well, I can tell you what a mountain looks like when it's on a topographical map,
Right.
but topologically, what is a freaking mountain?
That's right.
You know, it's beyond conception. I don't know. That's just where I'm thinking. So that's interesting. Any more comments? Shall we continue to read?
Yeah, we can continue to read.
Let's
Yep.
go.
In California, I find a powerful latent awareness of the significance of this great moment of human transition. I find in this community a spontaneous desire to cease backing up into our future and enthusiasm for a general forward facing of society. Now that's the voice we need to be hearing.
John Butler's voice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Here he is to
That's-
save the
Hello all.
day.
yeah.
Yeah.
That sentence was completely muddled just now,
No, it wasn't. Actually, it wasn't.
but
So he's
do-
seeing in California, there's a great moment of transition going on. A spontaneous desire to cease backing up into our future and enthusiasm for general forward-facing society. So he had a lot of hope back in 1966. And we were talking, John, about this potential. He saw this as a time in the last 12 years, science is convinced that every human being can be successful on the planet. This is back in 1966. Of course, he got discouraged by 1980, you know,
Yeah.
but when he wrote this book, he was really positive.
And he was probably right in theory, but he didn't allow for humanity.
Yeah, he didn't know about greed and corporations. Pardon me. I should
well, he knew about that.
And ruthless individuals.
Well,
and ruthless individuals. Exactly.
Welcome, John. But
Thank
also,
you, Manu.
you know, okay, but never hold anybody of this caliber to numbers.
right.
Oh yeah.
No, I agree.
Okay, because we are basically incompetent,
Yeah.
and we want to have a significance to criticize and say, but he says 10 years. Now we are 20 years. No, what he's talking about is pattern,
Right.
right?
Right.
Even that time is a pattern of time. The essential message is that it is possible
Right on.
to design in this way, in such a way that the result be successful, right?
Right. So he's
Yeah.
going to continue to talk about California here. John Butler, I
Yes.
think Joe wants to enroll you in.
I'll read another paragraph.
Okay,
or
good.
two,
Let's read another paragraph, Joe. Go
and then
for it.
John can then show us how it's done.
Okay.
Typical of the power of this West Coast springboard into the new chapter 3, relationship to universe, is the initiative of San Jose State College in throwing off the semantic yoke of engineering. With all its tradition and professionally starched fabric, to re-identify the general engineering undergraduate major as the cybernated systems discipline, open to all undergraduates.
Wow. Was it killed or does it still exist? Steve?
I don't
What?
know, I'm gonna look that up.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know, okay, let's talk about it because I study engineering. This is the way you do. So you high school and you are taking your SCT and they say you are a smart guy, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And they say, okay, you're going to study engineering.
Yeah.
And they spend MIT, all of these places, Columbia, these places, you spend a lot of money,
Yeah.
right? But you are boxed, isn't it? You are boxed,
Yeah.
right? Because you are specialized from there on into your future.
Yeah.
What he's saying here is that engineering should become as philosophy. It
Yeah.
is a general course that everybody can attend. And it should be taught in a way, and exchanged in a way that people from every background are able to grasp with the concepts and the
We've-
systems of how universe work. That's why I call it cybernetic, right?
Yeah.
Systems discipline.
Do you remember about this time the book Psycho-Cybernetics came out? Back in the 60s, cybernetics was a big deal. IBM was creating computers and they figured they could get on top of everything. And notice here, this is San Jose State College. Well, what has San Jose become since the 1960s? Every
Silicon Valley.
computer genius in the world, India, from all over the world, they go to San Jose. And that's where the whole silicon industry came out of San Jose. That's what it is.
And it's state college,
Yeah.
college.
Yeah.
It's not Ivy League.
Yeah.
It's not even at that time a very famous thing.
Yeah.
It's
Cybernated.
San Jose State College.
Cybernated systems discipline. Basically, let's start putting computers on everything and let's solving problems on a macro scale. Okay. Any other comments or thoughts about that?
Nope.
Silicon Valley. He predicted Silicon Valley right there.
Hmm.
Okay.
Such semantic reorientation is only the beginning. In my constant travel around the world, I witness everywhere the swiftly accelerating birth of world man. Nowhere in my 70 years and in my many years of world travel, with oft repeating visits to 174 world around universities and colleges, have I felt the final leap, not universal citizenship, from the springboard of local inertia to be as imminent as I intuit it to be in California, North America. Okay.
Comments, questions?
He likes California.
He was still very optimistic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very optimistic. I noticed this such semantic reorientation is only the beginning. So evidently he is confident that by changing our words, by changing my words, I change my paradigm.
Well, it's true.
Yeah.
Words are very powerful and words can create very strong perceptions and boxes that
Right.
people struggle to break out of.
And he was talking about the semantic yoke of engineering and the new undergraduate cybernated systems discipline open to all undergraduates. So there's his semantic yoke and the new orientation. Cool. Comments, questions? Let's see if we can. I don't think we're going to finish it off tonight. Let's see if we can.
The USA as a theater of crossbred world man best discloses the patterns coming upon all men. In the USA, the population census is taken every 10 years. 2 censuses ago, it was found that the average USA family moves out of town every 5 years. In the last census, they are moving out of town every 4.5 years. The pace is quickening. At the last every 4 year, presidential election, it was estimated that 30 million were unable to vote because they had not been in their new homes long enough to qualify for voting. Since 65 million did not vote, those disqualified by the glacial speed reshuffling of society numbered 50% of those who did vote. Since the shift is accelerating, it is clear that within a few more national elections, the majority of American citizens will be unable to vote, and democracy will have to find other than a static geographical base for qualifying man to have his voice heard.
Wow.
Let's stop there. Really, it is, in my opinion, this is really a basic, way to demonstrate how anachronic things that we hold as representative actually disenfranchise huge swathes of population just
Right.
because things didn't change. You are saying here, because, for example, we're talking about blockchain revolution.
Mhm.
Everybody is only talking about, when you say blockchain, they're talking about cryptocurrencies, and especially Bitcoin and Ethereum. That's what interesting people. All the applications, for example, in the voting rolls, that will minimize cheating. That will make sure that the person who voted is the person who voted, because encrypted and it cannot be infringed upon, are disregarded, right? He's saying here that the ephemeralization imposes on us changes, which are, one of which is increased mobility.
Mhm.
Because it's easier to travel, it's easier to change, we increase. But the laws that define how we express our franchise as a citizen are anachronistic, because it required that you stay at the same location, same address for a certain time to qualify. As a consequence of that, say the US population at that time is about 200 million in the 60s. 200 million people, there were 100 million qualified to vote. Only 60 million voted. So 30 million qualified to vote but could not vote, 30 to 40. So does the will of 100 people represent the will of the American people, if you call it that? That is one big question.
I got to tell you, Manu, he's prophesying a major issue in America today.
But
If
it is
you-
the issue.
It is the issue right now. Right now, the Republicans are putting millions, tens of millions of dollars, maybe hundreds of millions of dollars into local secretaries of state elections, because the secretary of state in each of the 50 states is the one who makes the rules on the elections. And there's a major move of the Republicans to reduce the number of voting boxes, to reduce the number of hours people can vote, and in fact, to figure out all sorts of ways to eliminate fraud in voting, which after 62 law cases in America brought by Republicans, none of them had enough merit to stand in court. So there were 62 cases of alleged fraud in elections, and none of them held water. And yet, probably a quarter of America is still convinced that Joe Biden did not win the election, and that Donald Trump is actually the president of the United States. And this is what the January 6th thing is all about. And so here is Bucky predicting chaos in a voting system in America that is not working. And you can talk about blockchain, but this cell phone ought to solve the problem. Because I have access to my bank, and
Right.
when I go into my bank, I get a text message immediately. Hey, somebody's accessing your bank. Why doesn't everybody get a text message when somebody accesses their vote? Right?
Exactly. Yes.
And it
No,
doesn't
that
take blockchain
there
to
are
do that.
some local rules, but what happens is you need to just have it needs to be a grassroots effort.
Yeah.
Where you start to get one state to have it, where it's
Right.
completely secure and completely trustworthy, and then you start to get people, and that's how you'll increase voter participation. Voter participation, there's a lot of reasons. It's not just people moving from state to state that is
Yeah.
the problem anymore. That's
Right.
not
Well,
the biggest
these
issue.
days, it's the Republicans increasing the restrictions
Yes.
to reduce the chances of the less well-educated Democratic supporters be able to vote. Isn't that it?
Yeah.
It-
Yeah, they're
it
not
is, but
saying
it's
that.
interestingly enough, the Republicans actually benefit from mail-in voting. They just are creating they are creating they're undermining the voting process
Yeah.
just to do it.
Yeah.
They don't even necessarily, it doesn't reflect reality at all. Like
And
they
here's-
actually benefit from that, and they still are undermining the system that actually benefits them. They're just causing chaos, which is much more nefarious.
Here's something that's interesting. Mike Lee is a Republican senator from Utah. Each state in the United States has 2 senators. And Mike Lee is now running this term in the midterms here against an opponent and could be kicked out of office. Mike Lee is a fierce constitutionalist. So he's very right-wing, fierce constitutionalist. And the Republican Party is against mail-in ballots, and yet Utah has had a mail-in ballot system in for the last 15 years. And he, in his last debate, he said, Utah has been able to make mail-in balloting work because we've been doing it. We've got the systems in place. But then he immediately says that other states are screwed up and they need to eliminate mail-in balloting. I mean, it's like he's talking out of both sides of his mouth. And Utah works. Utah mail-in ballots work. And he admits that. But he's not going out to the Republicans saying, hey, use the Utah system, because it's a good model. Anyway, it's amazing to me that, it's amazing to me that Bucky is predicting chaos in the voting.
And there is just this whole geographical shift that we're undergoing now.
Right.
With this great resignation, and people are moving to different states now.
Yeah.
Now,
Plus
voting
gerrymandering.
voting aside, I'm just saying that, there is this, people are not bound to where they once were.
Yeah. And with COVID, everybody working from home, I just talked with a real estate guy today. I think that it's like vacancy in office buildings in Utah is like a majority of office buildings in Utah are vacant.
Wow, that's
I
scary.
mean, yeah, it is scary. And that's interesting because we need housing. So let's convert some of this office building to housing. I'm going to have that conversation with him. Any other comments or questions here? Sorry that I'm talking so much about this. It just blows
That's
me
an
away.
interesting project.
No, I mean, this is very interesting because a lot of people, and not the least people, are predicting at the minimum unrest in the US in 2 years. Really, really bad things.
Yeah, I agree. It's all around.
Because the result of election is guaranteed to be cut in the middle.
Yeah.
Is guaranteed. Is that between Republicans and Democrats is going to be like, not decisive. And no, there's no middle ground. Nobody in the US today is prepared to accept the victory of the other camp. So and so the middle ground has disappeared, shrunk so much that I don't know how that will.
I would differ on that because like when Gore went up against Bush, the ballot was down to it was down to a minuscule thing, and it was contestable, and Gore, a Democrat, surrendered to the Republican candidate and made a smooth transition of power. So Gore saw all the election problems. This was basically the Chad voting thing in Florida because their punch ballots were all screwed up. So the Democrats conceded election. And so then when there's some, and by the way, Kennedy got elected, and a lot of people, because of Illinois, one state, got Kennedy elected, and a lot of people were convinced
For
that the
2,000
mafia,
votes.
and the mafia was controlling the ballots in Illinois. And
Yeah.
so we've had clouds about our elections for decades, and now suddenly we have a Republican Party that's making big issues out of it. It's weird that he predicted this balloting thing. Shall we continue reading? I'm sorry that I'm so
Yes.
excited about this, but here we go.
What do we know? What can we see of chapter 3? Nature has devised two main and fundamental organic designs for the systematic solution of life's metabolic regeneration requirements. The zoologists and the bot, botanic, botanicals,
Botanical.
botanicals. I'm sorry, forgive me.
Okay.
That I should know that. The vegetation is designed with roots to receive its sustenance at first hand by photosynthesis from the sun and sun energized hydraulically and pneumatically regenerated chemical recycles. The zoologists are designed with high mobility to go after their sustenance and receive their sun energy indirectly by first feeding upon the vegetation. Some zoologists feed on other zoologists, which latter first feed on vegetation. Man, though designed zoologically to go after his sustenance, found a few places where the vegetation gave him fruits and palatable foods. Those who did find favorable vegetation conditions set about to guard the territory and to cultivate the most favorable types of vegetation, and others hung hopefully about them. Thus, man with very short legs and very big earth came to confuse himself with the botanicals and pretended that to himself that he had roots and that he owned the favorable pieces of the earth. The swift evolutionary changes taking place.
Hang on.
Believe me, take your time. Invisibly are about to uproot him. All concepts of urbanization will become obsolete. Only the Earth and the solar system will be his temporary home. The swift shift of humanity from an agricultural to an industrial world economy draws men from agricultural lands into the city. The industrialized tools and industrialized planting, cultivating, and harvesting service industries sweep over the cultivated lands. Urbanization is only temporary as the cities become the launching pads for each human blastoff into world shuttling citizenship. The centers of cities explode outwardly like volcanoes to deploy their supermarket services to ever newer mobile traffic centers. The immobilized families and individuals begin to shuttle swiftly between high concentrations of and highly diffused deployments. They converge for the metaphysical exchange, for the brain and mind activities, for cultural and commercial exchange, for museums, theaters, and university study, for broadcasting, which is high velocity publishing. They deploy for their physical activities, for their muscular and energetic activities, for mountain and water skiing, for factories and physical, archaeological, geological, ecological research. The whole of the urbanism is a vast oscillating system, a world embracing entropic volcanic physical explosion countered at increasingly high frequency with the world embracing metaphysically contracting an information concentrating system which regenerates by broadcasting and publishing it progressively generalized concepts for generation of man's anti-entropic functioning that fulfills his universe functioning.
Comments, questions?
That's pretty
Whoa.
straightforward. That's pretty
Y'all,
straightforward.
it is amazing. First,
Yeah, that's right. That's one word.
yes, is now, Steve, bringing your general principles into application, into demonstrating how universe works. First, the zoological, which is high mobility, and the botanical, which is low mobility. And between the two, there's operating system, which is the photosynthesis. Right? So you have what you can call a sphere or a circle of eternally regenerative energy. And then talking about urbanism as a vast oscillating system.
Mm-hmm. I thought that was
And
interesting.
so we're embracing anthropic volcanoes to deploy their supermarket services. So the cities are like volcanoes. You know, like in nature, the role of volcanoes is to spread, is to radiate, right? In geology, the role of volcanoes is extract material from the in of the earth and then disperses it in the atmosphere by eruptions. So cities are like that, you know, like cities, centers of cities explode outwardly like volcanoes to deploy their supermarket services to ever newer mobile traffic centers. Amazon. The immobilized families and individuals begin to shuttle swiftly between high concentration, gravity, and highly diffuse deployment. Gravity radiation, always. And then it talks about they converge for the metaphysical exchange. That I call on Steve on that. For the brain and mind activities, for cultural and commercial exchange, for museum, theaters, and university study, for broadcasting with high velocity publishing. Ephemerization is fast, right? Ephemerization doesn't mean that you do magic. Ephemerization is just what the conjunction of two things: dividing, high speed, and the ability to apply generalized laws to coalesce what is necessary to achieve a goal.
That's the only three things?
The two things
Two.
is radiation and gravity. Ephemerization is actually, say, you have a computer, it can divide very, very quick,
Right.
right? And you have speed of analysis and identification of patterns, and then usage of those patterns to achieve things. It's like there is a flow. I mean, it's like surfers. How do surfers surf a wave? They identify a flow, they get in on time, and they can surf. They can be on top of it without drowning, and they come out the other side. If you come in there inexperienced, what is going to happen to you? The rip current is going to take you, you're going to drown. Because when you have the wave coming, there's always rip current, right? Instead, a wave coming like this, to me, there's a rip current like that, perpendicular. Wave coming, you can see if you are on the coastline, you see the wave coming. But beware that there's another motion like this that is perpendicular to that one that can swallow you into the waters and you drown. I'm not a surfer, but here in Cape Town, all over the coast, there are warnings. Beware of rip current. So is that the ability? Is the ability of the microchip to be fast and the mind to be helped into identifying patterns and using those patterns. And it's just, you know, an application of what nature does. It's the same that when you are growing to something, they say you learn by failing faster, right? Everybody has heard about that. What does
Yes.
failing faster means? Your special cases, your discrete cases have been, your toolbox is big because you have recorded, you know, and memorized all of those cases. And you have the ability to retrieve faster. So in the face of a situation, you remember that that works and you can retrieve it faster. Call, recall, and it works. And that is what he was calling about the college in San Jose, teaching people to think.
Yeah.
And it goes to Steve, thinkable set. What is it? And how do you use it? First, identify what the thinkable set is. Second, how do you use it into being more effective, into being more predictive, teleological? How do I use the energy that I have for the best?
Yeah. Cool beans. We've only got one more page to read. Maybe we can finish
Yeah,
this
we can
off.
read it. Yes.
And then we can discuss, maybe spend a few minutes and discuss what we're going to do next time, because we've talked about a couple different alternatives here. Want to continue, Joe?
Sure. Epilogue. I have been asked, what would you do if you were building commissioner of the USA or even of the world? I would resign. It is popularly assumed that democracy's checks and balances, its political and economic institution, frustrate logical housing solutions. Many think that housing of man can be accomplished only through a powerful political mandate. They overlook the far vaster prerogative of the inventor. The inventor has natural and immediate access to all potentials of the universe. That it?
Yep. Edison, continue.
Oh, I'm sorry. Edison, Bell, Marconi, and the Wrights needed no licenses from anyone to light the night, to shrink the earth and interlink all of humanity. Yesterday's capitalists were naturally eager to prolong the earnings of profitable machinery investments. They disliked investors. Investors made their going machines obsolete.
Inventors.
Inventors, I'm sorry. They disliked inventors, forgive me. Businessmen were powerful enough to persuade society that inventors were screwballs. All that is changing. Businessmen now find change profitable. Inventors are becoming respectable. Inventors pay no attention to man-made laws, pay attention only to the physical laws with which alone govern what man ultimately may do in the universe. If humanity succeeds in becoming a total success, it will have been initiated by the Wright and Bell type inventions, and not by the always debilitating and often lethal biases of politics.
I think that's the end of the book.
Sorry
Yes.
about the inventors.
Well, in fact, it's funny, Joe, because when I read that word, when you read inventors correctly above, I thought it said investors, and I'm going, whoa, and you corrected me. And then as we went down lower, you went to my track of thinking.
Yeah.
So what's interesting to me here is he talks about inventors being Edison, Bell, Marconi, and the Wrights. Of course, the Wright brothers were on their own, but Nikola Tesla was the guy who Marconi stole all of Tesla's patents, and Edison stole Tesla's patents. I even think that Tesla worked with Bell for a while, if I remember my history of Nikola Tesla. So these are the capitalists who basically made money off the inventor, which was Nikola Tesla. So I just thought I'd throw that out. Any other comments?
Steve, is even better. The reality is this one, is that you should look at it through the prism of Morgan,
Yeah.
JP Morgan.
Bell, and Tesla.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You understand what I'm trying to say? Morgan, I mean Morgan, Edison, and Tesla.
Yeah.
Morgan, the way Tesla was going wasn't going to serve Morgan.
Yeah.
No, they were going at it. It was,
It wasn't going to serve it.
it was Westinghouse
Yes.
that was backing Tesla.
But he knew that he could hold Edison because there was a healthy competition between Edison and Tesla. They were contemporaries. They are very, very interesting, you know, the way they went about direct current and alternative current.
Yeah.
So, but the guy who was pulling the strings one way or the other was JP Morgan.
Yeah. Well, it's very complicated. Thomas Edison invented the electric chair to prove that Nikola Tesla's idea of current was dangerous.
And he killed elephants too.
Yeah.
It
Thomas
was
Edison.
disgusting.
Yeah.
But if you were left only to inventors, it would have been a different outcome to what we have.
Yeah.
Right?
We have to be careful.
The thing is that the capital came on the back and wanted to appropriate. Remember type 1 and type 2 of Susan. Remember that. Always remember that. In type 1, you know, the intention, which Bucky was saying, the inventor has pure intention, if we can say pure between quotes, and those things.
Yeah.
Right? He's not bound by any political stuff. He's just looking, it's just natural laws that he's trying to apply, and those are free. But as soon as there's a perception of a potential of leftovers, what happens? Politics start playing. People start trying to appropriate. And most of the time, even they don't care, they just kick you out because, and then even with your early investors that come in, well, they've invested, they want to milk the cow to death. Because any other inventor is a potential danger to them, because another inventor might come with a concept that completely makes obsolete what they have already invested their resources in. And that's another tension. So it's always have that game. And most of the time, the loser is the inventor.
You're explaining exactly.
Yeah.
You're explaining why the Soviet Union didn't work right there. That is one reason it didn't work.
Yes.
To be quite honest, is that once you had an established technology or whatever, that that the state had a vested interest in it, and that essentially they were not going to allow anything else to be created.
Yes.
I mean, there were 3 types of classes, and there are 2 types of classes that Marx talked about, and there's really 3, and entrepreneurs are one of them.
Yeah.
And they create they create things that upend the current whatever is currently. Let's just think of it like in terms of something like Standard Oil upending, or even Edison upending with electric Standard Oil, because they were using kerosene at one point to light and heat everything. So instead we're using electricity at a certain point, and we're moving towards that. But if you have people that are too invested in kerosene or oil, then they're not going to change.
Yeah.
But what you just explained is exactly why certain systems don't work. There's a creative destruction to it.
Well, we have a word of three types. And this is natural, it doesn't depend on race. It's just a consequence of our social organization. You have risk takers, you have the thieves, and then you have the followers. That's all. Those are the three types: risk takers, thieves, and followers.
There's no fourth.
No,
That's
give me
depressing.
one that doesn't go into those three.
You.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Sometimes
You're
I'm a
not in
thief.
those three.
Sometimes I'm a thief. Sometimes I'm a risk taker. Sometimes I'm a follower. But those are, they're there. It's crude, but that's the reality. And all what, you can also explain that into that we have many different things that weave to making us. And from time to time, a slice of time, we exhibit a major, right? I'm always interested into a medical term when they say somebody is a bipolar. We are unable to function in a mode that is more than only one pole. We are unable. That's why bipolar is a sickness, because you have two contradictory poles in your system. You are, and there are two contradictory poles that want to be active in the same phase, during the same phase, and is against the well functioning of nature. We know that each phase has only one pole, isn't it?
Yeah.
Each phase has only one pole. Pole is the maximum. Each phase has a maximum and a minimum. Each phase has only one pole. It's not two.
Right.
So if you are during the same phase, but two poles are fighting during that same phase, what happened to the orderly, to the pattern? It disintegrated. You cannot function in the social fabric.
Huh.
That's why in medical terms, they say a bipolar.
Huh.
This is my thought. I'm not saying that it's scientific. It's my digression.
It's interesting.
Yeah. Well, that completes our reading of this book, and we've talked about maybe going after it again. And then, John, earlier tonight we talked about a couple of other books, Grunch
Yep.
of Giants, and possibly Bucky's book on intuition. So we can go in a couple different directions here. Comments and questions. Do you want to do a pitch on the Grunch book again, Manu, for John, or what are we thinking? What do you guys want to do?
Let's just first, we've just putting forth my preference
Okay.
before. I will think that from this book, since we landed on very practical things, the normal follow-up is the Grunch of Giants. Because Grunch of Giants is Bucky's fault just before he died.
Yeah.
I've
He had
heard of it,
published
but
it.
haven't read it.
Yes, he had published it in 1981 or something else, because the Critical Path is 1979. The Grunch of Giants, I think, is 1981, and he died in 1983. And given this, that in these two books, especially in Grunch of Giants, is talking about problems that we're facing today. John, am I wrong?
He hasn't read it.
I haven't read The Grunch of Giants.
Ah, you haven't read it.
Mm.
Oh, but it is. It is. I have it.
It looks interesting. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, it is. It is really the. Like it is an extension and more development of the last paragraph that we read. That epilogue.
Well, that makes
You take
sense.
the epilogue and then you expand it. That's what it is.
If it follows on,
Yes,
and it's relevant
in my
to what we're
opinion.
dealing with now.
Okay, let me just read to you. Let me just, maybe it will give you a gist of what it is. Let me just read.
Manu, I'm
Yeah.
also cool with Grunge of Giants because remember I was wondering what he would be saying about the world, in 1980 something, to see how much he would have added on to the design discipline. We can deal with the intuition another time. Yeah.
I'm good with that.
Yep.
Mm.
You don't have to
Okay,
sell anymore.
let me just read it a little bit. With the appearance of Grunge of Giants, Fuller consummate is literally canon. His panoramic lifetime survey of all aspects of the responsibility of human beings for their own destiny. This book is a modern allegory. His long gestated myth of the villainy of capitalism and the flecklessness of classic economics. For Fuller, the academic discipline of economics is irrelevant since it derived from an invalid assumption of scarcity. In fact, he has long argued that future historians and our era may subsume our business practices as a branch of mythology. Thus, it is not surprising that the word economics appears nowhere in his text. Fuller's myth is no idol or fairy tale, since he faces his question, the question of technological imperative, which only he could raise with the deadly seriousness of satire. That question is, can our system of national political sovereignties and corporate profits survive the inevitable technological revolution required to obviate wars by effecting a worldwide rise in the standard of living? One of the functions of myth is to resolve contradictions in our culture. Grunge of Giants portrays the rising multinational corporations in the paradoxical role of functioning both as the epitome of capitalistic selfishness and as the inadvertent vehicle for the dissolution of national political boundaries, the last deterrent to a one-world economy. The result is more subversive of the property and profit values of the capitalist system than anything dreamed of since Karl Marx.
Wow.
This is written by E.J. Applewhite, who was a collaborator with Buckminster Fuller on Synergetics and Synergetics 2, and is author of Cosmic Fishing, a memoir of working with R.B. Fuller. So it's not big. It's, as you know, I think it's also in this format. It's 77 pages, 80 pages, 88. No, let's say 90 pages, which we can study too. And I think it will be a good complement to Utopia.
I agree with it. I think that it's a really
Yep, I'm
natural
happy with
thought.
that.
I'm happy with that as well. I'm looking
Steve,
forward
could you
to
get
it.
the PDF? Is it possible?
I've been looking for the PDF. Let me go to Buckminster Fuller Institute and see what they've got there, and maybe I could buy it from them.
I don't know if you can get the PDF.
I don't know if I can either. It's called
We might have to resort to Kindle.
yeah, we could do that maybe. Is it available on Kindle?
It is.
Well, I can certainly get it on Kindle. I don't see at the Buckminster Fuller Institute. I don't see, you'd think they'd sell those things.
Especially the,
Well,
well, maybe it was written by
I
somebody
bought it
else.
from Amazon. It takes time though, because it is expensive and takes time because they have to print it. For sure.
That's yours is yours a hardcover?
Yes.
No.
Yeah,
No,
that's
it's
expensive.
not a
That-
hardcover.
No, it's a soft cover.
okay.
Subcover, yeah.
The hardcover is $50. But this one it's only $10
On Kindle.
on Kindle.
All right. Well, we can do that.
Let's put it as a challenge to Steve.
I think it's actually great.
My friend is very resourceful. I know that he's going to solve it.
Well, we're probably yeah, it's $10. Okay. It's also on Audible book, but that doesn't give us a chance to read it and highlight and keep track of what's going on. So I'll go ahead and buy it. And
Check your email first.
check my email first. You got me? Okay, check my email first. And John, you sent me an email that you want me to share. Do you want me to share this?
Oh, the one about Atlassian.
Yeah, Atlassian.
Oh, it's just some information on that new head office they're building.
Oh, cool. Could you share that?
Yeah. I thought I shared it when you sent it last week, but I'll be glad to share it tonight to everybody that's here.
It's interesting paradox. They're saying everybody can work from home. Nobody has to come in, but here's a super duper state of the art building for you to come to.
It seems interesting. That I'm suspect of that sometimes because it's like, come on in, it's like Candyland.
I'm sure it will be.
Yeah, it's
But I think the ideal is a mixture. I think the ideal is a mixture of remote working and contact. I think for many people, remote working has some serious limitations. I think there are social dimensions to physical interaction in the workplace.
I think physically we have to be. I've witnessed this week multiple things that got done within 5 minutes that would have either not gotten done or taken months to get done otherwise.
Because people didn't see each other.
They didn't say. They had a quick conversation. Hey, I don't have access to this thing. I need it to do my work. It would have been 2 months in the waiting. It took 10 minutes. Hey, here's something. We have this much money that is dead money that we need to do something called final bill. And the person said, no, we don't need to do that. But that conversation doesn't happen over email. And that would have been a lot of work.
Okay, I just sent out the Atlassian thing. I stripped out all the communications on top and just sent your basic message to everybody on this call right now.
Good.
So
Oh,
you
cool.
guys, Anne, Manu, Joe, you should be receiving that email. If you're not getting it, please let me know.
How far is this from you? Joe?
From me,
Yeah.
the other side of Australia,
That's it.
that's 4,000 kilometers.
Yeah. So it's not walking distance. It's not walking distance.
No.
John is in Western Australia in Perth.
Yeah, so it's a 39-story building. It's going to anchor the Sydney Technology Central Precinct. And it's going to spearhead innovation within New South Wales. So you've got the New South Wales government, you've got Atlassian, you've got Dexus, and you've got YHA.
Wow.
So-
You should see the top of this building.
Yeah, I know.
You want to share, Joe?
I can't on this because my computer's got too much. On this one, I can't. Hang on, let me try.
Well, Steve, share.
All right, let me see if I can get
It's a
that.
very unusual looking building,
It is.
and it's net zero carbon emissions.
Oh, you could tell. Steve, so I'll just send it to you right now.
Okay, well, you can stick the link in the thing and then I'll open it up so everybody can see it now. So in the chat. This
Yeah,
was
In
not.
the meantime, I
this
can
was not-
share this, something very interesting about cybernetics. Sorry to digress. Is that the core concept of cybernetics is circular causality or feedback, circular geometry.
Of cybernetics?
Yes, it is said, I'm just reading here. The core concept of cybernetics is circular causality
Where are you
or
reading that?
feedback. I'm reading on my phone on Wikipedia.
Did you drop the link in the chat, Joe, or did you send it to me email?
I did both.
Okay, there it is in the chat. So I'm going to open it up. And then I'm going to share right now. Here we go. And there it is.
Wow.
Scroll down though. Wait till you
Oh.
scroll down.
Okay.
Well, I mean, the question to you guys is that in the presence of that, you stay home or you go to work? What's your choice?
No, you go to work. I go to work anyway.
That's it.
See that?
I'm not going
That's
to
the-
stay home.
That's the part that's really neat.
Hey, John,
Whoa.
You see-
Whoa.
are you going to stay, especially with an efficient commute? Are you going to choose to stay home or do you go to work?
Oh, I'll go in. I'd go in anytime.
You
Especially if you had,
There are
Uh,
60 floors in that building. You probably have to work there for 60 years to get to the top floor.
I'm hoping the top floor is open to everyone.
It's 39 stories.
It's 39 stories, so 39 years.
Yes, it's going to be a very different building.
The trees on top though, is something
Yeah.
that was what was, completely. I wonder what the energy bill would cost in this.
Nothing.
That's what I was wondering,
Zero.
if it would be zero.
I think they say somewhere, don't they?
Oh, it's a 480 bed hostel for travelers.
Over 5 floors. I think that's over 5 floors. Yeah.
A hostel?
Yeah. So
Oh my
that's
God.
96 rooms on each floor of 5 floors, 96 suites, a hostel. Yeah. YHA is Youth Hostels Australia.
You can really zoom in on that top floor if you wanted. If you click it.
So, John, tell me, if there is a hostel, does it mean that people can just choose to use that tower as home too, right?
No, I don't think they'll be able to live there long term. I think it'll be short-term stay
Okay.
because Youth Hostels Australia provides budget accommodation for young people who are travelling.
It's got 4 years left before it's finished.
Yeah, it'll take them a while to build it. But yes, that rooftop is something different, isn't it?
Oh, it's incredible. It's the most incredible thing I've ever seen.
Anything, well, Atlassian prides itself on being different.
And that, what is this? The structure is just steel, or is it
Steel and
composite?
timber, steel and timber.
Yeah.
A
Wow.
lot of timber in there.
You pray that no fire, right?
I was just thinking that you pray there's no even something like this, you pray there was no attack, because this is
Wow.
something else.
Well, it's amazing.
It could be a model for the world.
I'm
But
sure
do you
that's
know
what
how much a
Atlassian
square
does.
foot in Australia in Sydney cost?
You mean to rent?
Well, I mean the cost to even to rent or to buy is huge.
I think I think I saw somewhere this is going to cost $1 billion to build.
I would every bit of that. Unless they're
Anyway.
getting the land. Japan's
Okay,
OBIC
Japanese are involved. Yep.
corporation.
I let the time get away.
Yep.
And it'd be good to wrap it up. So,
Okay.
Joe, how you feeling and what's your takeaway today?
I'm feeling pretty good. I feel very fortunate to finish Utopian and Oblivion. I thought that Bucky actually hit on some of those key factors that we're still facing today, as far as economic growth at that particular moment in time, what it looked like, and what he thought was possible for the rest of society, for that everybody in society, that we could have a system that is regenerative for everyone. I think we need to think about that one paragraph a little bit, to be quite honest, where he writes about that 12-year period, going from 1955, I believe, whatever it may have been. I also think that it was, I thought it was interesting when we was talking about investors and the role that inventors, I'm sorry, not investors, the lack thereof investors, that inventors, being able to do what they do is something that I think is critical for us as well. Is we sometimes let things like financing get in the way of change, real change. And I think that's that was pretty profound, and in talking about whether it be the Wright brothers or Marconi, or I think you mentioned Edison in there. The other thing that I thought he captured with the voting systems, I think the overall theme of Utopian and Oblivion, and I said this before, is that he's able to use techniques to really capture certain things that had come true. He wasn't always right on everything, but even the way the airline ticketing process would work, those types of things, he used his principles in order to make those predictions, and those predictions were in many cases fairly accurate, which means that we really need to think about his framework, his 14 concepts, when we're thinking about our own prediction and how to envision the future. And I think it is still Utopian or Oblivion. I think we're in the same position, where it is a question. I don't think it's a given that it's going to be Utopia. But I'm hopeful because we keep showing up. So with that, Anne, my dearest friend, Anne, how are you doing? And what did you take away from today?
Thank you so much, Joe. Okay, two major things. One is that, how he talked about re-identifying engineering to become the cybernetic systems discipline. And was it Steve, you pointed out that was, or was it Manu who pointed out that this is the start of Silicon Valley? And I thought that was really significant. Yeah, I've been to San Jose, and I went to this company we're collaborating with called NeuroSky, dealing with biofeedback and neurofeedback chips, So, and yes, of course, mountain view and everything was just amazing. It's come to pass, yeah. So I was blown away by that one. And the other is that I really like the idea that the inventors, they don't follow man-made laws, yeah, and they follow physical laws. And the thing is that all this while, the bad guys, or rather, the what do you call the criminal elements, right? They have been functioning, or maybe not criminal, I would say, the dark web, where everything and anything that can happen. I've heard of it. I've never been in there. Yeah. But the point is that, any people in the criminal element, let's say, for instance, who functions away from the polite society, let's say, yeah, they push boundaries and they get there, right? So but the above ground society, we are bound by so many man-made laws, you know. So I really like the idea of what he said here, that inventors don't follow man-made laws. Yeah. So yes, John, what is
Yes.
how do you feel and what is your takeaway?
I'm very glad I was able to catch at least part of today's call. And just a couple of quick things that are running around in my head. I actually, it was very interesting to look at Bucky's optimism when he was writing, and to look at the current world state of mind as far as I'm aware of it. I think the last 3 years have damaged a lot of optimism and generated a lot of negativity. And, you know, some of the examples were being said, you know, a new UK Prime Minister who lasts 45 days, or what's happening with Trump in the States, or you know, what's happening in Iran. I've seen something in the last week about our state of mind, and I'll see if I can find it as soon as we finish this call and send it to all of you. I think part of the challenge for us is to continue to expose ourselves to Bucky's work and positive mindsets, and to focus on what we can each do to contribute towards utopia rather than oblivion. I think it's more challenging now than it was when Bucky was writing. I think it's still achievable. I mean, Bucky did say somewhere that, you know, mankind has historically sort of rescued himself from the brink of extinction on more than one occasion. So we can do it this time. So yeah, I'm looking forward to doing a bit more thinking about this, and to moving on to the Grunch of Giants. So glad to be here, glad to be part of it. So Manu, how do you feel? What do you take out of today?
I feel thankful and grateful. That's the first thing that I feel. The second thing, my takeaway is this one, is from Bucky here. He says nature uses two methods for life metabolic regenerative requirement. And he talks about the zoological, that is high mobility, and the botanical, that is low mobility. And then there is a way that they exchange, that is photosynthesis, synthesis. And I think that it is always the case that we have to copy nature's ways and bring them forth, and bring forth their applications fast enough in achieving anticipated outcomes in a responsible manner. Let me repeat it. Copying nature's ways and bringing them forth, and bringing forth their application fast enough in achieving anticipated outcomes in a responsible way. And that is my biggest takeaway from this, from all the studies, is that we have here a template or a framework of thought and action into achieving and designing the future that we long for. Steve, how do you feel? What do you take away?
Well, it's so interesting to me that one of the comments I wanted to make was, again, Bucky is so like topological. In other words, what is the essence of a thing? Deconceptualize it, come out of the strict stereotype of what this is or that is, and then just describe it in some cosmological, topological way. And I was captured too by the whole idea of the botanicals versus the zoologicals. You know, the botanicals are the plants with roots, and the zoologicals are the animals that were the hunter-gatherers that went around from plant to plant. As the harvest grew, they went around and went where the food was. And how Bucky takes these historical facts, he could get all caught up into farming and industrialization, but no, he talks about botanicals and zoologicals. I'm a zoological. I have a new topological definition of myself. I'm probably gonna have nightmares about that. But it's so funny, Manu, that you picked that up, and that was one of the things I wanted to comment for sure on. So I don't know. I'm afraid there's a disease, Manu, and I'm catching your disease, whatever it is. this disease to go abstract. I'm really grateful for Anne sharing her experience about her school, and I'm grateful for all of us on this call. Each one of you guys have such a unique perspective, and you're doing something where you are. And but I'm really excited for Anne and what she's doing with her school. And wow, if the world could
I
just
agree.
catch that vision, the vision that she's been working on for 10 years. I mean, how long have you been on the Bucky calls, Anne?
A year.
Only a year.
Exactly.
My gosh. I bet you Kelly wishes you'd started 10 years ago so that he could take some credit for where you are. You're your own pioneer. And I think each of us are pioneers, or we would not be in this call. There could be 35 or 40 people in this call. There aren't. There are the 5 of us with a couple missing who would come in when they can, right? Julian and Susan and Roffers and Nelson. There are guys who keep rolling in, and we miss you guys. So if you're listening to this video, we miss you. So I'm real excited about that. I was kind of excited to see about this Atlassian building. When John first introduced it, it was an anti Elon Musk kind of thing, because Elon Musk made a statement about he wants all of his people to be at work and not be able to work from home. And I think that both ideas are really profound. And let's hope that this Atlassian thing with these billion-dollar investment, let's hope that it just really makes a big wave for the betterment of humanity. Let's hope that that is part of the utopia that Bucky talked about. So I'm excited that we all get to share. I'm also delighted that we've kind of got a direction for next week, and I accept Joe's gift. He sent me, he gifted me the Kindle book. So now I have no excuse but to share it. I can't plead poverty or anything else. I have abundance flowing all around me, and I'm very, very grateful. And I'm looking forward to our conversation next week. I also want to bring up a couple of things. I don't know if these have any bearing with you, but I was listening to Jordan Peterson was doing an interview with a guy named DeWalt, who's into etology. Etology is a biologist who focuses on the behaviors of animals, and instead of studying, like Skinner studies animals in a box, an etologist studies animals in their environment and looks at their behavior, and they were talking about intelligence and consciousness. And a couple of really important things were said. Peterson talked about how the prefrontal cortex evolved out of the motor cortex. That's what he purports. And that the prefrontal cortex is primarily used at mapping out action and manipulation before we implement it. Now, what's interesting is he tied that into a conversation that he had with Roger Penrose, who said that they were talking about consciousness and the nature of consciousness. And Roger Penrose says that consciousness is not computational and it's non-algorithmic. So this idea of creating artificial intelligence by creating algorithms and mathematical things,
right?
I'm sure they're going to make big progress. But Roger Penrose is convinced that consciousness is not computational, it's not algorithmic, because the horizon of the future differs unpredictably from the past. In other words, human beings have this innate capacity to see into the future. And they're not trapped by history. And from my understanding, and Joe, pardon me for my ignorance, but basically artificial intelligence takes a look at data and then does algorithms on the stored data to make predictions about the future. But Roger Penrose is absolutely convinced that human beings have something about them that allows them to see and predict without they're able to induce. So this goes back to design. And I think Penrose would probably be a design guy. He was a banger for a while, but he's kind of moved in the idea that the universe is conscious in the first place, that consciousness did not evolve from matter, but matter evolved from consciousness. So anyway, those are random thoughts that came to my head as,
Well,
go ahead.
I think there's two books then that we actually need to cover. Is that Intuition, and then after Grunt,
After Grunt, maybe let's look at Intuition. In fact, I'll get Intuition and I'll look at it and see just how powerful it's going to be.
Yeah, because I think that that's going to be an important discussion to have.
Yeah, because that intuition is that prefrontal cortex, the ability to see the design in advance and see ideas that wouldn't come from the historical data. That's the idea. Well, those are my thoughts for today. I'm really grateful for you folks. I'm really grateful being a member of this tribe, and I'm honored to be host and doing the few things that I do. And I'm open for any suggestions on how to make it better, because I do make mistakes. I even look back at my emails and said, well, geez, why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do that? So any input you have will be graciously appreciated.
I'm
And
provoking you, Steve.
what's that?
Read that in the chat.
In the chat? I see what Ann said. Kelly has to take credit for what we do. And Ann, you're going to explain that next week?
Yep.
Do you want to take a minute and do it now?
Well, sure, I can do that.
All right,
Because,
let's do it.
Kelly has been our business, has been our trainer, and mentor for years now. And they always, Blessinger, Robert Kiyosaki, they're perpetually talking about Buckminster Fuller. So I've been exposed to that for a long time. Yeah, in fact, he wanted to have more discussions even early on. I just didn't think I had anything to contribute, so I kind of chickened out and didn't join. Yeah. Then when I connected back with Kelly and he invited me to join, I said, okay, I think I'm ready to go with this. Ta-da. Yeah, so he is instrumental.
Okay,
Yeah.
very, very good.
Thank you.
Right on. Thank you for sharing. And Manu, you wrote, is AM, you mean amplitude modulation?
Mm-hmm.
Is amplitude modulation a manifestation of consciousness? Let's ponder that until next week.
And patterns, because you don't invent patterns.
That's exactly right.
Patterns are there.
Yeah. That's when I say design, or when I say Roger Penrose, that we have this ability to anticipate the future without the base of the past, he's talking patterns there. I'm sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then intuition, how do you link that to consciousness?
Yeah. Very, very good, guys. Okay. So it's very grateful. See you all next week. Thanks for supporting and sharing. You complete, Manu?
No. 1 second. Yeah. Just give me a second, please. I want to do something. I'm cheating your minute, but
yeah, you are.
Have you heard of Executive Order 14067?
Okay, no, I'm done.
Okay, really good. See y'all next week.
Take care.
Yes.
Bye.
All right.
Take care, everyone.
All right.
Thanks, Joe. Hi, Manu. See you later, my friend.
Okay, cool.
Bye-bye.